Welcome back to I'll See Myself Out. My name is Daniel Lisho.
Usually we look at somebody else in the room to go at this point in time.
Depending on which way we look, Norm can reorganize us as long as we're all looking kind of in the right direction.
What do we usually do? I think most of the time we tend to go Dan.
So then I'll look to the right, and then
what are you doing?
You're gonna look down. Oh, sorry, Ryan, you're gonna look down.
Dan,
I hate you so much right now.
Don't do this.
Yeah, Dan, can we not?
Okay, fine. Welcome back to I'll See Myself Out. My name is Dan Lisho.
I'm Ryan Patel.
I'm Terry.
And I'm Norm Reynolds.
Consider these your only warnings.
There will be foul language.
There will be spoilers.
And there will be foul language.
This is our very first Facebook stream / home recording. We're having a rough go. We started about an hour ago and we've just hit record. So it's just been a bit of a trial.
This is the 1984 classic. Paul Hogan acted in Crocodile Dundee. We're focusing on the best quotes. Any iconic quotes that you guys found?
I think the number one quote that probably lives from this movie is, "That's not a knife." If I had to pick one out.
There were some really weird things that I remembered from watching this initially in my childhood. And it wasn't even a line, as so much as I think I had like a deep flashback when Mick is in the bar in New York and he reaches for the trans woman's crotch to find out whether or not it's a Sheila. That really stood out for so many reasons. A, because like I feel like if that was ever done in a movie now, there'd be an insane amount of blowback.
Because it's horribly wrong?
I feel like Australia was like a really novel thing back in the 80s, but now like people would just be like, what the fuck? Who would ever do that? Like they probably have him wear like a MAGA hat in the scene or something like that, you know?
Yeah, and then later on, I think it's like in Crocodile Dundee time, like an hour later, they're at a party and there's that lady who's got the super deep voice, and he just kind of like looks around and just like reaches down to check. Oh, he just reaches down and gives a little pat and goes, "Oh, pleasure to meet you." Because he's like, "Oh yeah, sure. So this is totally a woman. Yeah, nice to meet you." Sue has to cover for him and say he's from Australia, and she's all for it too. She's like, I gotta go there sometime.
Isn't also in that scene helping the guy who's doing the lines of coke? That's just like, oh, that's just cocaine, and there's not even batting an eye about it. Like the guy's been doing rails in the fucking kitchen.
It was the 80s. This is when everybody was like that.
Is that the coked out time where all the traders are just completely on blow?
In addition to that, she was definitely high class society, so that was probably super common for her above everybody else.
How many hundreds of dollars in cocaine did Mick Dundee wreck for that guy?
I was like 4 or 5, I think.
He misunderstands the situation and thinks that the guy has a cold and he's trying to clear his sinuses.
Yeah.
He's got the towel over his head.
And boils him a little pot of water and dumps like $500 of the cocaine he's sniffing into it. Yeah, no, you're doing it wrong.
I just imagine he walks into the room and like basically to him it's like somebody's sniffing Neocitrin. They're like, buddy, you need to do this differently.
One of my favorite quotes of this entire movie is when Neville Bell comes out of the woods when they're in the back bush, and she goes about taking the camera. She goes, "Oh, can I take your picture?" She's like, "No." He's like, "No, you can't take my photograph. I'm sorry." And she's like, "Oh, is it gonna take your spirit away like some dick?" And he's like, "No, the lens cap's on."
I mean, she tried to be really empathetic too. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry. Am I gonna take your spirit away?"
Walks away and goes, "I fucking hate the bush."
That's my favorite line of the whole movie. How does he find his way in the dark? He thinks his way. And then you just hear him fucking crash and burn. Hate the bush.
Probably my favorite part of the movie in terms of like how ridiculous it got was when they're in the saloon and they're initially telling the story about how he survived the gator attack, and they're describing it, and he's like, they're literally saying he like crawled on his hands and knees for 100 miles just bleeding to death. And then what does he say? He's like, "Yeah, I went right past the hospital and straight to the bar."
Fun fact I came across, in 1999, the person that Crocodile Dundee was based off of, because he was like a based on real life character, died in a shootout with police. He shot and killed a police officer like from the bush. Like the other officer returned fire and killed him. He got rich from a book he wrote about his experience surviving some sort of crocodile attack. Basically, like he bought all this stuff and then hit rock bottom and then just like didn't do well.
Oh, I also want to comment. I think my favorite part of the movie is when he props the rifle in the dead kangaroo and starts firing back at the trucks. I think that was my favorite part of the movie.
How drunk do you have to be to honestly think a kangaroo has picked up a gun and is aiming it at you?
I mean, if you're driving around firing into the bush at night at the back of your fucking pickup truck, I mean, I think you're probably pretty fucked. Like, you're probably good to go.
They never really addressed if whether he was a poacher or not.
It gets brought up so many times.
And he's just like really butthurt about it, but never defends it. Like, I feel like maybe he was actually a poacher.
being woke in the 80s was like kind of a weird thing. Like I felt like they wanted to approach a lot of topics in this movie, but they were like, somebody got to the cutting board after doing editing and they were like, no, let's just make it a goofy movie about an Australian guy and a city girl. Let's take out all the serious stuff.
One of the really best lines of this movie has to do with when the crocodile almost eats her and he gets away, like she gets away from
That
it.
fucking
and
crocodile. Oh my God. Anyway, go on, Terry.
The crocodile has a knife in its head and she's like, is it dead? And he's like, well, if it isn't, I'm going to have a hell of a time skinning the bastard.
I thought you were going with the follow-up to that, where she's like, that crocodile was going to eat me alive. And he's like, well, I wouldn't hold it against him. I thought about it once or twice.
One of the other lines that stood out to me was near the beginning when he's like, all right, so I'll see you on like Thursday. He's like, all right, what day is it? He's like, it's Tuesday. He goes, okay. And then he just like turns around and walks away. He's like, doesn't know, doesn't care.
I think that's one of the things that threw me so much is because they were developing the characters, and I knew it was going to be comedy. It felt like the action was like here. There was no climax, no plateau, and like there was that scene where at the dinner where she gets proposed to and agrees to marry, and that was like, it was probably supposed to be the pivotal moment, but it felt like a straight line as far as intensity for the entire movie, just like set up and payoff of jokes rather than an actual hard story.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And the second one isn't really any better.
I have to talk about how horrible that the Sue character is. She takes a guy across the entire world, like halfway across the world, leaves him in one of the busiest cities in the world alone immediately to figure out what a bidet is.
I like when he sticks his foot in it, by the way.
That actually brings up another one of my favorite quotes is when he's driving into New York for the first time and he sees all the people and they're like, yeah, 7 million people live here, or 7 million people live here. He's like, 7 million people living this close together. Wow, this must be the friendliest city in the world. There was some spots that like, if I was walking, it would have stopped me in my tracks. Like, wow. When he asked Carl Winslow, what tribe are you from?
Fucking Carl Winslow is like, what? I'm from Family Matters, bitch.
Was he a cop in this one as well?
No, he was the driver of the limo. By the way, when the fuck did he learn how to throw a boomerang like that?
And he tears it off the back of the fucking car.
I thought it was gonna like hit the side of the alley or some shit because that made more sense. But no, he was versed in boomerang.
He's like, you sure you're not tribal?
Now, what would you guys rate this movie?
I give it 8.3 Glenlivet French Oak Reserves out of a possible 10 French Oak Reserves from the distillery Glenlivet.
Jesus, Daniel.
Norm's just like fucking listening to you, and I can read Norm's face being like, is he done yet? When is he going to be done? I give this movie 7 out of 10 unsolicited dick grabs.
Ryan just took mine. I was gonna call it the Maga Mitten.
Jesus fuck. I'm gonna give this 9 chapped ass screaming assholes out of 12 Woody Harrelsons.
I'm gonna rate this movie 7 That's Not a Water Fountains out of 10. If you guys like what we saw here today, hit the like button. If you want to see more of it, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell to get notifications for when we post new content. If you feel like we missed anything, feel free to fill us in by dropping a comment in the old comment box.
You can catch us reviewing The Cable Guy on one of our forthcoming episodes starring Jim Carrey. Is there anything else that we're supposed to deliver at the end of that? So this has just been me doing extra laps. This is like gym class all over again. And you can also catch us on one of our forthcoming episodes chatting about The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey, which was actually also one of the films that helped him finally cash in that $1 million. Was it $1 million or $10 million? Fuck! That $10 million check he swore he would write himself. Why am I fucking this up so hard? I gotta get my facts straight. You can catch us on one of our forthcoming episodes where we're gonna be chatting about the $10 million check film. What? Fuck! God damn it! Fuck!
Yeah, okay, don't talk about the check.
Hit the like button if you think we should drink more, and hit the dislike button if you think we should drink less.